Hello, welcome back to another video. My name's Jemima, and as you can tell by the title, I'm going to be talking all things hostels today. This video is for you if you've never been to a hostel but you're curious, you've been once or twice but you were kind of like unsure, you're ready to like go on a big Euro trip and stay in hostels, or go to South America and keep costs low by staying in hostels rather than Airbnbs. I've got your back. By the way, if you want to comment saying that I say hostel weird, I'm sorry, I say hostel. Apparently other people say hostel. Whatever, I say hostel. I do have another video all about different things that are essential for hostels, but this is more like things to know before you go. There are definitely unwritten rules. There are unspoken rules that are just kind of things that you learn from staying in a lot of hostels. But having that knowledge before you go in will really make you feel a little bit more comfortable and confident and ready to do it. Because like, let's be real, hostels are kind of weird. You're sharing a room with like 8 people that you don't know. Sometimes you can stay in a dorm room of 32 people that you've never met before. That's weird. Like, let's be honest, it's weird. However, if you're only going to be paying 20 euros a night, that's way better than 100 euros a night in an Airbnb. Plus, you've got a chance to meet some really cool people. But yes, it is very daunting. So let's just jump right in. I was going to make this video a bit more interesting by like doing a little coloring in while I was going through the tips, so it wasn't just like me sitting here. So I printed up this beautiful coloring in of Rome, but turns out that my printer did not have any ink, so it doesn't work. So I'll just have to like be interesting for you. So I'm channeling high energy. I just had a coffee. Let's go. I wrote down some handy tips for you. The number one thing I have on my list to talk about is alarms. Obviously, when you're traveling, sometimes you're going to want to wake up early. Maybe you've got a tour, maybe you've got a flight booked, maybe you just are a morning person and you want to seize the day. But when you're sharing a room with 8 other people, is it okay to set an alarm? I say yes. Some people think it's only okay to set it on vibrate, but sometimes that's not gonna wake you up. I think it's okay to set an alarm so long as you turn it off and you get up. I've stayed in places where people snooze their alarms for like 2 hours and then just go back to sleep. It's like, sir, I am listening to your fucking alarm go off from 6 AM and you're not even getting up. It's so annoying. If you're gonna do it, just turn it off straight away and get up. I have no issue with alarms so long as marimba is not blasting in my ear every 15 minutes from 6 AM. You know? Another thing kind of on the same vein that I think people get a little bit tripped up on is it okay to turn on the lights in the room when other people are sleeping? Rise and shine. So say for example, it's like 7 AM and you're getting up to get a flight, but you need to like get your stuff together, but everyone else in the room is still asleep. Is it okay to turn the light on? I personally would just sort of like use my phone torch. I wouldn't really turn on the main light overhead. I just think that's a bit too much. Like, it wouldn't be rude per se, because you do have to like get out and get your stuff, but I just, you know, I don't really need it on, so I wouldn't do it. Most hostels have a little reading light next to every single bed, a little PowerPoint and a reading light. Some of the older ones, some of the cheaper ones might not, but I really like staying at places that have a special reading light next to every bed. So then, you know, when you get up at 7 AM, you can turn just that light on and you're not really bothering anybody else. But if it's like 3 PM and you come in and the room is dark and someone's asleep, I would just turn the main lights on or open the curtains, because it's 3 PM, sorry dude, I need the lights on. Kind of in the same vein, say you've got an early morning flight and you know that you've got to leave at like 6 AM. I always make sure to pack everything the night before. I don't want to be sitting there repacking my bag while everyone around me is asleep. I just think that's super rude. So I'll just have everything packed the night before. Obviously I'll make a little bit of noise as I get up, get my stuff, get my toothbrush, get changed, etc. But yeah, just, you know, have as much done as you can. It's just courteous, because then next time you're hungover and the person on the bunk next to you is getting up at 6 AM, hopefully the karma flows through and they're not going to be super loud. A question that comes up a lot, especially with people who are traveling solo for the first time, is female only dorms. I personally don't really mind whether it's a mixed gender or female only dorm. The one thing is you're more likely going to get snorers if you are sleeping in a room with men. Not stereotyping, just based on my own personal experience. Men just seem to snore more than women. Whatever. Being able to choose a female only dorm is definitely a plus if you're feeling a little bit unsafe, if you're traveling by yourself for the first time and you're a little bit wary, you're not really sure, you're just sort of easing into it. Maybe a female dorm is a great way to go, just in terms of like getting yourself situated and getting comfortable with hostel living. I honestly haven't ever had any issues. The only time I've had issues are like, you know, drunk boys coming home and like making a lot of noise, but you know, drunk girls could probably be doing the same thing. And snoring, like I said before, oh my god, I stayed in this hostel in Bulgaria, and I don't know why, but like there were like 5 50-year-old men in the room, and they were so loud, and like the way the bunks were set up, my head was here and his head was here. There was like a plywood wall between us, but it was like oh my god, it sucked. It was the worst. But you know, girls can sometimes make just as much noise as boys, so if you feel like it makes you feel safer, it's definitely a good option to go with. Also, usually the female dorms are smaller, like they'll be like a 4-bed dorm as opposed to maybe a 12 or 16, so it's also a plus there. Next up, top bunk or bottom bunk? This is an age-old question. I personally am a bottom bunk girly. I hate the top bunk. I don't like being up high. I like having all my stuff close to me. I don't like having to climb up and down. I like the bottom bunk. However, some people only like the top bunk. They don't like having their like face down near people walking around them. They don't like other people being able to sit on their bed during the day. You know, everyone has their preference. One thing I'll say is you're not always going to be able to choose. Sometimes you'll get assigned to a top bunk. Sometimes you'll arrive in a room and there's only top bunks left. My number one tip for top bunks is to bring an empty tote bag with you when you travel, and then you can kind of hang it on the end of your bed and keep all your important shit in there, so that say you're like about to fall asleep and you're like, oh my god, I don't have my eye mask. You don't have to get up and go all the way down. Just have all the stuff you need in a little tote bag next to you. I have made a video before of like hostel essentials, which I'll link here, which I think is pretty helpful. I've had a lot of people say like, whoa, this has actually really helped me like pack for my first time in a hostel. Next up, I have written down, do you have to talk to people? No, you don't. I think what I mean in this context is, say you're walking into your room for the first time, it's an 8-bed dorm and there are like 2 people in there sitting on their beds watching something on their computer or like talking. Should you say hi? I think, yeah, I think it's courteous just to like give them a wave, say, hey, how you going? You don't have to engage them in full conversation if you're not feeling it and if you're not getting the vibe from them that they want to chat. But I definitely think it's worth being like, hi. You know, I mean, you're going to be sharing a bedroom with them for like maybe a couple of nights. So it's definitely worth saying hi. And you never know, you could end up having a great chat and making a new best friend. It's happened to me, which kind of brings us to the next point of how do you make conversation. Some people, those extroverts, are so good at making conversation, and I am infinitely jealous of the people who can just like have a chin wag with anyone they meet. That is not me.
So, do you like stuff?
I am not very good at making conversation, but the good thing about traveling is that it's pretty easy to like ask the same questions over and over and get interesting responses. Like, where are you from? Where are you traveling? Where have you been? What have you done in this city that we're staying in that's cool? It's pretty easy to like sort of strike up a conversation and then like carry it on and carrying it through. Whenever I got anxious about sort of like, oh my god, this person might think I'm a loser, I don't know the right things to say, I'm nervous, I don't know how to have a conversation, just remember that they're probably like feeling the same way too. You're both strangers to each other. You're both probably like needing someone to hang out with because you're alone. And this is just a good way to do it. Strike up a chat about where they've been. Say they're like, oh, I was just in Greece. Even if you have no plans to ever go to Greece, just be like, oh my god, I'm going there soon. Please give me your tips, give me your recommendations, because there you go. That'll like set them off on a 10-minute tangent. And then they might be like, oh my god, I went to this amazing pizza place. And you can say, wow, I love pizza. Actually, there's a cool pizza place around the corner from here. You want to go get dinner with me there later? Yeah, cool, great. You know, it just flows on from there. It doesn't have to be scary. I mean, it feels a bit scary, but it won't be once you get the ball rolling, you know what I mean? And then there are gonna be days when you're just like, nah, fuck this, and you're gonna hole up in the corner of the common room or in your bunk with your earphones on and not talk to anyone, and that is okay too. You need to have a balance. Okay, next up, oh, I have written down here, sex, question mark. Can you have sex in a hostel room? I have heard a lot of people say that they have walked into their dorm room and there are people going at it. Particularly I stayed in this like party hostel in Budapest, and it never happened to me, but I heard a lot of stories. My thoughts are, if you're in there alone and no one is gonna walk in on you, go for it. I have done that once, but that was because I knew that we could lock the door and that when someone came, we could stop and they would come in and not see anything. But like, there are so many people who just like go at it like rabbits while people are walking in and out of the room. I think that is not okay. I think if you walk into a room and 2 people are having sex, either like leave or just sort of like make yourself known that you're there, because maybe they don't know you're there and they're like, oh my god, we've got to stop. Like, I think it is kind of tacky. However, if you're traveling for a year and you know, you don't really have anywhere else to do it. When I did it, it wasn't my finest hour, but I definitely wouldn't have done it if I thought that someone would be able to walk in. I know that a lot of people get a bit worried about having valuables in hostels, like if they've got their phone or their laptop or a tablet, like cash, their passport, kind of is worrying, especially if you're in a room with like 10 other people. You're like, is this kind of like sus? Luckily, most hostels do have lockers, so just make sure you've got your own padlock. If you can, get one with a little combination rather than a key, because if you lose the key, then you're kind of fucked. So some places will have like small lockers in like the common areas where you can lock away like little valuables. But a lot of hostels now actually have sort of like drawers, like 2 big drawers underneath the bed where you can put your whole bag in and then lock it up, which is really handy. And it's also a neat way to like keep all your shit in one place. I'm not very good at locking up my stuff. I'm kind of just like, whatever. I probably should be more cautious about it. But here I am. I've never been stolen from. So, well, actually someone once stole a towel from me in Albania, and I'm still really annoyed about it because I really liked that towel, but it could have just blown off the balcony as well. I don't know. I want to talk about the size of the dorm rooms. Some rooms will have 4 beds, some will have 8, 10, 12. I've seen up to like 32, 36, which is pretty daunting. Like, that's a lot. However, the price difference between the huge rooms and the small rooms is usually a lot. Like, it can be up to like 15 euros per night, which is like a lot of money when you're traveling on a budget. I always kind of weigh up where I am when I'm choosing the size. Say I'm in like a party town and I know I'm not really gonna be partying every night. I'm not gonna wanna stay in a room with 36 other people. Say I'm in Amsterdam, there's a good chance that at least 30 of those people are gonna be out late every night. Again, not stereotyping, just assuming. But I was in Edinburgh and I stayed in I think it was probably like a 20-bed dorm. I was like, oof, this is gonna be tight. But it was actually one of the best hostels I've stayed in. It was a huge room. All the bunk beds were against the walls, so there were heaps of floor space and you weren't like in anybody's face. Everyone was quiet and courteous. Every bed had their own little lamp. Like, no one got up in each other's grill. I think also the fact that it had a really good common room helped, because no one was like hanging out in the room too much. Usually I will aim for like the 8-bed. 4-bed is ideal. Truly 4 beds ideal, but that's not always gonna work out with your budget. Not every hostel is gonna have small rooms. Again, just like suss it out, go with your gut, maybe read some reviews on Hostel World. Perhaps there's someone on there being like, never stay in this room, it's terrible. So let's talk about booking. Should you have a booking? Can you just rock up on the day? How far in advance should you book? So I would recommend booking in advance. When I was traveling through Europe, there were a few times where I just didn't book and I kind of rocked up and got a room. However, that did fail for me one time when I got to this town on like the weekend of a cool film festival. There was only one hostel in the city and it was booked out, and I was like, whoops. Definitely worth booking in advance, especially if you are in the busy areas. Like if you're in Western Europe, if you're going to like Paris, if you're going to Greece, if you're going to London, if you're going to Germany, like book in advance for sure. If you're going to like random places and you're not quite sure of where you're going to be, I think rocking up is fine. If you're in the off season, just rocking up is okay. But really, if you want peace of mind and you know where you're gonna be, book in advance. I would recommend Hostel World and booking.com are 2 good places to book. There's usually not too many fees. If you can, book directly with the accommodation themselves, even if it's just through like DMing them on Instagram or sending them a message on Facebook or email or whatever, because often they have to pay a fee to the booking website. So it's kind of better to just give them your money directly. It's not the easier option. However, wherever you can, it's better to do it. Finally, the #1 thing that I would recommend, I didn't do this enough and I wish I had, is, especially if you're alone, book your hostel based on the activities and things that they offer. So many hostels nowadays offer different things every night, like activities, whether it's a bar crawl, whether it's like a cheap like family dinner where you all eat together, whether it's a walking tour or like a tour out somewhere or a movie night or something like that. It's such a good way to meet people. Always say yes to the activities. Often they're free or pretty cheap. You're meeting people who are already in your hostel, and if you hate it, you can just leave. I wish that I had done more of this when I was traveling. I tended to book out the cheaper hostels, which didn't have as many cool activities, which was fine because I saved money. However, like, I met some people in Prague and they were staying at this awesome hostel, and every night they would have these cool activities, and I'll just go back to my shitty hostel and be like, oh, this sucks. I didn't stay there because it was like an extra 10 euros a night, but I should have spent it, because then I would have had fun and I would have met more people. I think it's worth spending the money to stay in a hostel that offers stuff like that, especially if you're a bit nervous about meeting new people. Hostel activities are the best way to do it. That brings me to the end of this video. Yes, staying in a hostel can be daunting if you've never done it before. I remember the first few times I was like, what the hell? What am I doing? But then I got kind of used to it. I realized the perks. I mean, obviously every now and then I'm like, fuck this, I'm going to get an Airbnb. I do not want one more person to put their stinky socks on the end of my bed. I cannot spend one more night with this drunk dude snoring in my face. Yes, you will have those moments. However, overall, hostels are good. I wish that more places had hostels like Europe. Imagine if America had the hostel network like Europe does. It would look like that futuristic city meme. It would be amazing. Really, the best hostels are Europe, South America, and Asia. Australia has some, but they're expensive. The US has some, but they're extraordinarily expensive. But hopefully this video has like given you a little bit more confidence, made you a little bit more ready to dive into the world of hostels. Again, I have these 2 videos about hostel essentials and packing lists. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. I didn't finish my beautiful, terrible coloring in, but that's fine. You are a legend, and I'll see you on my next video. Bye.